That bridge was known for its beauty and its tragedy. In the early hours of that grey morning, a man in an expensive suit walked to the edge, ignoring the biting wind that whipped against his face. A millionaire about to jump, and no one there to stop him, until a fragile voice coming from the ground froze him in his tracks. "Mister, if you jump, who will help me find my mum?" Subscribe to the channel for stories that touch the heart every day. The first rays of dawn barely pierced the dense clouds hanging over the city. The millionaire drove his luxury car to the bridge's entrance, parking haphazardly. He slammed the door shut, leaving the key in the ignition. It didn't matter anymore. His footsteps echoed on the damp concrete as he walked with purpose. The $3,000 Italian suit, which normally commanded attention in boardrooms filled with intimidated executives, now seemed like just an empty shell. The man inside had died years ago on a rainy night much like this one. In his pockets, only a wallet with documents and a faded photo, no explanatory notes, no last wishes. Who would he even write to? His friends were just business associates. Family? Gone for 7 years. On the other side of the bridge, partially hidden by the morning mist, the girl settled more comfortably under her threadbare blanket. Beside her, the guide dog perked up his ears, alert to every movement around them. The perpetual darkness in her eyes never stopped her from feeling the world. On the contrary, it had sharpened her other senses in an extraordinary way. "It's colder today, isn't it, buddy?" she whispered, stroking the dog's fur. The dog responded with a soft whine, restless. The child's routine contrasted sharply with the millionaire's. While he woke up in Egyptian silk sheets in a glass and steel penthouse, she awoke to the sound of the first buses, feeling the morning dew on her face. While he had coffee prepared by a private chef, she shared scraps of bread with her only four-legged friend. The businessman had a reputation for being tough, ruthless. He had built an empire of high-end private hospitals, places where health had a price, and it wasn't cheap. In business magazines, he was celebrated as a visionary. In the corridors of his companies, feared as a tyrant. No one knew his emptiness, the rehearsed smile in official photos, the well-articulated speeches at charity events, all part of an elaborate facade. Behind the doors of his silent mansion, he drank himself to sleep, looking at old photos of a time that would never return. The girl, on the other hand, lived on small acts of kindness. Some local merchants left her food. An elderly woman occasionally appeared to check if she was okay. The police officers turned a blind eye to her presence there, moved by her story and the dignity with which she faced her condition. Despite her blindness, she never accepted handouts. "I don't want to owe anyone anything," she said, with a maturity that was disconcerting for her few years. Now, on that grey morning, the two completely different worlds were about to collide. The millionaire reached the edge of the bridge and gripped the cold railing. Down below, the churning river seemed to call to him. He looked at the sky. He couldn't even see the sun. Perfect, he thought. An end as grey as the last years of his life. He took a deep breath, feeling the biting wind on his face. Memories flooded his mind like painful flashes. The phone call in the middle of the night, the desperate race to the hospital, the bodies covered by white sheets, the deafening silence that settled in his life after that. "It's better this way," he murmured to himself. His fingers began to loosen their grip on the railing. That's when he heard it, a child's voice, almost a whisper carried by the wind. "Mister, if you jump, who will help me find my mom?" He froze. He turned slowly and saw her. A little girl, sitting next to one of the bridge's pillars, with a dog lying beside her. The old blanket barely covered her thin legs. Her eyes, fixed on nothing, betrayed her blindness. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice trembling, mixing surprise and irritation at having his final moment interrupted. "I asked who will help me find my mom if you jump," the child repeated, with the naturalness of someone commenting on the weather. "I heard your footsteps. The way you stopped, your breathing. My mom taught me to listen to people who want to give up." The man stood paralyzed. How could a blind child perceive his intentions? Even more disconcerting was the calm with which she spoke about something so serious. "Why do you think I could help you?" he asked, taking a step away from the edge, almost involuntarily. The girl tucked a stray hair behind her ear and smiled. A smile devoid of pity, something rare in her life. "Because my mum said that one day a very sad man would appear here, and that only he would have the courage to really look at me." The words hit the millionaire like a physical blow. He felt his knees weaken. It didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense. And yet, "Who are you?" he asked, approaching the girl. The guide dog stood up, protective, but the child calmed him with a touch. "It doesn't matter who I am. It matters that you are here now," she replied, extending a small hand toward the voice. "The bridge speaks when people come here to say goodbye. I hear it almost every week, but today was different." Some pedestrians were starting to cross the bridge now. One of them stopped, observing the unusual scene, a man in an expensive suit, apparently talking to a homeless child. The businessman looked around, suddenly aware of where he was. The reality he planned to abandon remained there, solid and insistent. "What's your name?" he asked, crouching down to the girl's level, ignoring the impeccable suit that was now touching the dirty ground. The child smiled again, her unfocused eyes seeming to see something beyond the physical world. "That doesn't matter either, but you can call me whatever you want." At that moment, something inside the millionaire awakened. It wasn't exactly hope. It was far from it. It was curiosity. For the first time in years, he wanted to know what would happen next. The sky began to clear timidly when the millionaire realized he was sitting on the concrete floor of the bridge next to a homeless child. The absurdity of the situation hit him like a slap. What was he doing? "I have to go," he said abruptly, getting up and dusting off the expensive suit. The girl tilted her head as if she could see him through the eternal darkness of her eyes. "Do you really?" she asked with disarming simplicity. "Where to?" The question, so simple, left him momentarily speechless. Where to, really? Minutes ago, his destination was the bottom of the river. Now he was undecided, as if an unexpected door had appeared in a dead-end hallway. "I have appointments," he lied, his voice regaining the cold, distant tone he used in business meetings. "Important people waiting for me." The girl smiled, a smile so genuine that something stirred in the businessman's chest. "If they were that important, you wouldn't be here so early staring at the river." More people were passing by now, some casting curious glances. A man in a designer suit talking to a blind, homeless girl was not a common sight. The guide dog, sensing the millionaire's growing tension, became alert. "Listen," the man said, lowering his voice and adjusting his tie as if preparing an invisible armor. "I don't know who you are or what you think you know about me, but I can't help. I'm not that kind of person." He started to walk away, purposeful steps, but too slow for someone who really wanted to leave. A few feet away, he stopped and looked over his shoulder. The girl remained still, her face turned in the direction of his steps, as if she could follow him with eyes that couldn't see. "Not everyone can be saved," he muttered, more to himself than to her. "I didn't ask to be saved," the girl replied, her clear voice cutting the distance between them. "I only asked for help finding my mom." The millionaire closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a wave of anger. Anger at the fate that had brought him there. Anger at the cruel coincidence of finding a child talking about lost mothers, just on the day he had decided to end it all. "There are authorities for that," he said, his voice harsher than he intended. "Social workers, NGOs, qualified people." "I've tried all that," the girl replied with the resignation of someone much older. "Nobody believes me when I say she didn't abandon me, that she's coming back." Something in the child's unwavering confidence touched an old wound in the businessman. He remembered himself in the first days after the accident, denying the obvious, hoping for a miracle that would never come. "Sometimes," he said, taking a few steps back towards the girl, "the people we love don't come back, even if they want to very much." The child shook her head, stubborn. "My mom is different," she promised. "And my mom never breaks promises." The phone in the businessman's pocket began to ring, a jarring melody that seemed out of place in that moment. He looked at the display. It was his assistant, probably worried about his absence from the morning board meeting. He hesitated, his finger hovering over the answer button. A world was calling him back. The world of numbers, contracts, power. A world where he was respected and feared, but where he wasn't truly seen by anyone. "You need to answer," the girl said, not as a question but as a statement. "I understand. Important people always have phones that ring." The simplicity of the observation made something break inside him. He turned off the phone and put it back in his pocket. "How do you survive here?" he asked, still keeping his distance, as if afraid to get too close. "One day at a time," she replied, stroking the guide dog's fur. "People are kinder than they seem. Except the ones who walk by too fast, looking at their expensive watches. They never have time." The indirect remark did not go unnoticed. The millionaire felt the weight of the luxury watch on his wrist, a piece of metal and gears that was worth more than many people would earn in years. "I need to go," he repeated, but this time his voice had lost its conviction. The girl nodded, understanding. "I'll be here," she said simply, "if you change your mind about jumping or about helping me." The businessman walked away, heavy steps echoing on the concrete. With each meter he distanced himself, he felt a strange pull, as if an invisible thread connected him to that child. He got into his car, started the engine, but couldn't leave immediately. In the rearview mirror, he could see the small silhouette of the girl and her dog, two solitary figures against the grey backdrop of the awakening city. "This is crazy," he murmured to himself, turning the key and accelerating away from the bridge, back to the world he knew. But something had changed, and they both knew it. The millionaire spent the whole day on autopilot. He conducted meetings, signed documents, answered emails, all as if he were watching himself from afar. His assistant noticed something different, but didn't dare ask. No one dared to question the most feared man in the city's business circle. At night, sitting in his office in the penthouse, a glass of whiskey in his hand, he couldn't stop thinking about the girl on the bridge. The memory of her words haunted him. "My mum said that one day, a very sad man would appear here." How could her mother know? Was it just coincidence, manipulation, or something more? He opened his laptop and started searching for news about missing children in the city. Hours passed as he scrolled through tragic stories, abandonments, kidnappings. Nothing that connected specifically to the blind girl on the bridge. "This is absurd," he muttered to himself, closing the computer harder than necessary. He looked at the clock, 3 in the morning. In a few hours, the cycle would begin again. Meetings, decisions, power, the life he had meticulously built after the tragedy. A life made of professional successes and personal emptiness. He walked to the window of his penthouse. The city stretched out at his feet, dotted with lights. Somewhere down there, maybe that child was sleeping under a thin blanket with only a dog as protection. Before he could rationalize his decision, he was already in the elevator, then in the car, driving through the deserted streets of dawn. He parked a few blocks from the bridge and walked the rest of the way, as if trying not to scare a wild animal with his approach. There she was, exactly in the same place. The guide dog raised his head, alert, but didn't bark. "You came back early," the girl said before he could even say anything. "I thought it would take at least 3 days." The millionaire stopped, surprised. How did she know it was him? How could she be sure he would return? "How?" "Your cologne," she explained simply. "Rich people have a specific smell. Too clean, artificial." He couldn't contain a smile, the first genuine one in a long time. "You're observant." "I don't have a choice," she replied, shrugging. "When you can't see, you learn to see in other ways." The businessman approached closer, this time without hesitation. He sat down beside her, completely ignoring the fact that his $10,000 suit was now in contact with the dirty ground. "I didn't get your name yesterday," he said. "You didn't tell me yours either," the girl retorted. "Fair enough," he admitted. They were silent for a few moments until he asked, "How did you lose your mom?" The girl stroked the dog's fur before answering. Her voice, when she finally spoke, had a surprising firmness. "I didn't lose her. She was taken." "Taken? By whom?" "By the men she challenged." Something in the answer made the millionaire sit up straighter. "What men?" "The ones who do bad things where she worked. A big hospital. She was a nurse there." The millionaire felt a chill run down his spine. The coincidence was disturbing. He owned the largest network of private hospitals in the area. What did your mother discover?" The girl tilted her head as if listening to something distant. "She never told me exactly. Said it was to protect me, but I overheard phone calls, her talking about counterfeit medications, about people who died without explanation, about altered records." The businessman felt the blood run cold in his veins. He knew that his hospital network had expanded rapidly in recent years, with aggressive acquisitions and cost-cutting measures that the board of directors applauded. But he had always delegated operational management to his subordinates, focusing only on the bottom line. "When was the last time you saw your mom?" 7 months ago. She left me at a friend's house, saying she had an important meeting. That she was finally going to talk to the head of everyone, that he needed to know what was happening. She never came back. 7 months. The millionaire did a mental calculation. That was about when his chief operating officer had implemented a new purchasing system to reduce drug costs, a system he had approved without questioning the details, interested only in the additional profit margin. "Why do you stay on this bridge?" "Because it was the last place we were together," the girl replied. "She showed me the view, told me what the river was like, the mountains in the distance. She said it was her favorite place in the city." She paused, then added, "I feel like she'll come back here someday." Suddenly, the millionaire's world seemed to be disintegrating. The coincidences, the possible connections between this girl's story and his own company were too disturbing to ignore. "Come with me," he said impulsively. The girl didn't seem surprised. "Where to?" "To a safe place, where we can talk better, where you can take a hot shower, eat a decent meal." He hesitated before adding, "I'm going to help you find your mom." The child smiled, a smile full of ancient wisdom. "I knew you'd come back. She said you would." "Who?" "My mom. In my dreams, she said the sad man would come back and that when that happened, I should trust him." The millionaire felt a pang in his chest. He didn't deserve that trust, not yet. But for the first time in years, he felt a spark of purpose within himself. "Let's go," he said, extending his hand. The girl stood up, holding the dog's leash. She placed her small hand in his, an absolute trust in her gesture. "I'm ready." Together, they walked away from the bridge, towards a world that neither of them knew completely. The adaptation wasn't easy for either of them. The millionaire, used to the solitude of his sterilized penthouse, suddenly had a child and a dog in his space. The girl, accustomed to the freedom of the streets, felt confined between walls of glass and steel. The first days were marked by uncomfortable silences. He provided new clothes, a room prepared in a hurry, food that she barely touched. The girl accepted everything with polite gratitude, but remained distant, like a bird that observes the open cage, suspicious of the offer of freedom. "You don't need to do all this," she said, on the morning of the third day, as he tried to convince her to try the breakfast prepared by the private chef. "Do what?" "Pretend to care so much. I just need you to help me find my mom, like you promised." The words, said without resentment, hit the businessman hard. It was true. Part of him was compensating for years of indifference with a sudden outpouring of false generosity. "I'm not pretending," he replied, more to himself than to her. On the fourth day, he dismissed the chef and prepared breakfast with his own hands. Burnt eggs, hard toast, weak coffee. The girl smiled as she smelled the imperfect food and ate everything. "It's awful, isn't it?" he asked, trying not to laugh. "It's delicious," she replied. "It tastes real." It was the first time they really talked. Meanwhile, he began a discreet investigation. He used his contacts, accessed employee records, reviewed dismissals and leaves of absence in recent years at all of his hospitals. He discovered a nurse who had been fired for insubordination 7 months ago, the same one who had made complaints about irregularities in the drug sector. His main hospital, the crown jewel of his empire, had a director known for impressive results and questionable methods. A man the millionaire had promoted and protected, attracted by the positive numbers he presented quarter after quarter. "What did you find out?" the girl asked one night as he worked in his office, surrounded by papers and computer screens. He was startled. He hadn't heard her come in. Another reminder of the extraordinary skills she had developed to compensate for her lack of sight. "I'm not sure yet," he replied cautiously, "but I think I found records about your mom." Hope lit up the child's face. "Is she alive?" "I don't know yet, but there are people who don't want us to find her." The next day, he received an unusual phone call. It was the director of the hospital wanting an urgent meeting. Coincidence? The millionaire doubted it. "We need to talk about your guest," the man said on the phone, his voice calculatedly neutral. "How do you know about her?" "I know many things, including how dangerous it can be to interfere in delicate matters." The veiled threat did not go unnoticed. The millionaire felt a growing anger, not for the intimidation directed at him, but for the implication that the child could be in danger. "I'll be in your office in an hour," he replied dryly, hanging up before the other could answer. Before leaving, he found the girl sitting on the balcony, her face turned towards the sun coming in through the large windows. "I need to go out," he said. "I'll be back in a few hours." "You're going to meet one of the bad men," she replied, not as a question, but as a statement. He stopped, surprised. "How do you know?" "I heard the phone call, the way your voice changed. How your heart beat faster. I can hear it, you know. Be careful, they're dangerous." The millionaire approached and, in a gesture that surprised them both, lightly touched the girl's shoulder. "I'll be okay, and so will you." As he drove to the hospital, he reflected on how his life had changed in just a few days. From a man about to jump off a bridge to someone determined to unravel a conspiracy in his own company, all because of a child who couldn't see the world, but understood it with disconcerting clarity. In the hospital parking lot, he looked at the imposing building that bore his name in metallic letters. For the first time, he saw not a monument to his success, but a possible scene of crimes that were happening under his nose, with his unconscious approval. "What have I become?" he murmured to himself, before getting out of the car and walking towards the entrance, the posture erect of someone who was ready for a long-delayed battle. The meeting at the hospital was tense from the first moment. The director, a middle-aged man with an impeccable appearance and a rehearsed smile, received the millionaire with the confidence of someone who felt untouchable. "Let's get straight to the point," the businessman said, refusing the offer of coffee. "What do you know about a nurse who worked here 7 months ago, one who made complaints about tampered medications?" The director's smile wavered for a fraction of a second. "Ah, that troublemaker. An unstable employee with a history of unfounded accusations. She was terminated for cause. And her daughter, a blind girl." Now the smile disappeared completely. "I don't know what you're talking about." The millionaire leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the man who, until a few days ago, he considered one of his most valuable collaborators. "I think you do, and I think that's why you called me here today." A heavy silence settled in the room. Finally, the director sighed and opened a drawer. He took out a folder and slid it across the table. "Before we continue, you should see this." The businessman opened the folder. Inside, there were photos. Photos of his wife and daughter, alive, smiling. Photos he had never seen before. And then photos of the accident, images that the police had never shared with him. The destroyed car, the bodies. "What does this mean?" he asked, his voice trembling with anger and confusion. "It means there's more to this story than you imagine," the director replied, leaning back in his chair. "That accident wasn't an accident. It was a warning." The millionaire felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. A warning for what? Not to investigate too much. Your wife was a doctor, remember? She started asking uncomfortable questions about the new medication protocols we implemented, about the unexplained deaths, about the extraordinary profits. The floor seemed to collapse under the businessman's feet. All this time, he had believed that he had lost his family in a tragic accident. The possibility that they had been murdered, and because of crimes happening in his own company, was unbearable. Me? No, not personally, the director smiled coldly. We're just pieces of a bigger game. You built this empire by being pragmatic, not sentimental, cutting costs, maximizing profits. What do you think happens when you squeeze too hard? Someone always gets hurt. The millionaire stood up abruptly, knocking over the chair. "I'm going to destroy you. All of you. Sit down," ordered the director, his voice now icy. "We haven't gotten to the most interesting part of the story yet." Trembling with anger, the businessman picked up the chair and sat down. "Continue." The director slid another photo across the table. This one showed a woman in her 30s, wearing a nurse's uniform. She had gentle eyes and a determined smile. "This is the mother of your little protégé. She worked in the oncology department. She started noticing discrepancies in the drug dosages, unusual side effects. She collected evidence, documents. She was persistent, like her daughter." The millionaire picked up the photo, studying the woman's face. There was something familiar about her, something he couldn't quite place. Where is she? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The director leaned forward, lowering his voice. "The truth is, even I'm not sure. She disappeared after trying to contact you directly." The millionaire frowned, confused. "With me? But I never received..." "Of course not. Do you think we would allow it? Your assistants, your security team, your communication system, all filtered. For years, we've kept you too busy to see what's happening behind the scenes." The businessman ran a hand over his face, trying to process the enormity of what he was hearing. His empire built on lies, his family killed not by accident, but by revenge, his entire life manipulated by people he trusted. The director took another photo from the folder, an old one, yellowed with time. In it, two young women smiled at the camera, embraced in front of a medical college. "Recognize anyone?" The millionaire took the photo with trembling hands. One of the women was clearly his deceased wife, much younger. The other? "It's the girl's mother," he murmured, recognizing the same gentle smile as the nurse in the previous photo. "They were best friends in college. Your wife went on to specialize, became a brilliant doctor, married a promising businessman. The other had difficulties, had to abandon medicine when she got pregnant, became a nurse years later." The millionaire's world was collapsing with each new revelation. Did they keep in touch? Not for years. Until, by cruel coincidence, your wife's friend was hired to work at the main hospital in your network. Eventually, they recognized each other, and more importantly, they recognized together what was happening. The final revelation came as a whisper, almost compassionate. "The blind girl. She's not just the missing nurse's daughter. Your wife was her godmother. The girl you took in was already part of your family. A family you never really knew." The millionaire felt the air leave his lungs. Images crossed his mind. His wife mentioning a goddaughter years ago, invitations to visit her that he always refused, too busy building his empire. No, it can't be true. Ask her. Ask about the aunt doctor who visited her occasionally. The same one who promised she would take care of her if something happened to her mother. The promise never kept. The accident that killed his wife before she could assume responsibility for her goddaughter. The girl who ended up on the streets, waiting for a godmother who would never come. "Why are you telling me all this?" asked the millionaire, his voice almost unrecognizable. The director smiled, a joyless smile. "Because we need to reach an agreement. You have an empire to protect. We have secrets that need to stay buried. The girl is just a pawn in this game. So is her mother." "Where is her mother?" the millionaire repeated, each word laden with contained fury. "In a safe location. Not dead, if that's what you fear. Just kept safe, until we're sure she no longer poses a threat. I want to see her. All in due time. First, we need to establish some ground rules. You cease your little investigation. You go back to focusing solely on the numbers, as before. And we guarantee that mother and daughter will be reunited. Somewhere far away from here. Everyone wins." The millionaire stood up slowly, gathering the photos and putting them back in the folder. "I need time to think," he said, surprisingly calm. "Naturally, but don't take too long. Certain allies are getting anxious." As he left the hospital, the millionaire felt like he was walking through a nightmare. Each step was a monumental effort. His phone rang. It was his penthouse security guard. "Sir, there was an attempted break-in. The girl is safe, but I'm on my way." He cut him off, rushing to his car. The world he knew was crumbling, but for the first time in years, he felt fully alive. Arriving home, the millionaire found 3 security guards at the door of his penthouse. Inside, the girl was sitting calmly on the sofa, the guide dog alert beside her, while one of the guards examined a broken window. "What happened?" he asked, rushing to the child and surprising himself, hugging her. "2 men tried to get in," explained the head of security. "They used the fire escape. When the alarm went off, they fled. We only got a partial video of them." The millionaire nodded, still holding the girl, who seemed strangely calm. "Are you okay?" he asked, pulling back to examine the child's face. "I am," she replied, with the composure that always surprised him. "It's not the first time bad people have come looking for me." Something in the simplicity of the statement broke something inside the businessman. The reality of the situation, the danger the child was in because of him, the involvement of his deceased wife, the connection he never knew existed, all hit him like an avalanche. "We need to talk," he said, dismissing the security guards with a gesture. When they were alone, he sat down beside her. "There's something I need to ask." The girl turned her face in the direction of his voice, her unfocused eyes seeming to see beyond the visible. "About my mom?" she asked. "Partly. But first, did you know a doctor? Someone your mother called a friend? Someone who might have been your godmother?" The child was still for a moment, then a slow smile lit up her face. "The aunt doctor. Yes, she came to visit us sometimes. She brought presents. She read stories to me. Mum said she was very important, but that she had a sad husband who didn't like children." Each word was like a needle in the millionaire's heart. It was true. He had always avoided his wife's family commitments, considering them insignificant distractions. "Her name was Caroline?" he asked, his voice almost failing as he spoke his deceased wife's name. The girl tilted her head thoughtfully. "Yes, Aunt Carol. Mum said that if anything ever happened to her, Aunt Carol would take care of me, but then the accident happened," completed the millionaire, his throat tight. "Mum cried a lot when she found out. She said it was just the 2 of us against the world now. That's when she started getting really worried about things at the hospital. The pieces of the puzzle fit together with painful clarity. The dead wife, the investigating friend, the abandoned goddaughter, all connected to a conspiracy that was happening under his own nose, in his own company. "Listen," he said, holding the girl's small hands. "I found out some things today. About your mom, about my wife, about..." He hesitated, not knowing how to continue. "About the bad men at the hospital?" she completed. "Yes. And I believe your mother is alive." The girl's expression lit up, a hope so pure that it made the millionaire feel ashamed of his own previous hopelessness. "I knew it. I always knew it. When are we going to find her?" The millionaire hesitated. "It's not that simple. The people who are keeping her are dangerous. They offered a deal." "What kind of deal?" "They want me to stop investigating, to go back to being the way I was before. In exchange, they promised to release your mother." The girl was silent for a few moments, processing the information. "And are you going to accept?" she asked finally. Before he could answer, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. He answered, putting it on speakerphone. "Decided quickly," came the hospital director's voice. "Impressive. I haven't decided anything yet," the millionaire replied. Unfortunately, time has run out," interrupted the director. "There has been a complication. We need to speed up the process." "What complication?" "Let's just say that certain documents have started circulating. Documents that your little protégé somehow got her hands on. Documents that her mother hid before being invited to absent herself." The millionaire looked at the girl, who remained impassive. "What are you talking about?" "Ask her about the flash drive, the one she's been keeping for months. The real reason she never left the bridge." The millionaire hung up the phone and turned to the child. "Is it true? Do you have proof?" The girl bit her lip, suddenly looking like what she really was, a scared child in a cruel adult world. "Mom gave it to me before she went to her last meeting. She said it was very important, that I should keep it until the right person appeared." "Where is it?" The girl hesitated, then pointed to the guide dog. "In his collar. There's a hidden compartment." The millionaire checked, and indeed, there was a tiny flash drive hidden in a secret pocket of the animal's collar. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because Mom said I'd know when the time was right, that I'd feel when I could trust." "And you trust me now?" he asked, a note of desperation in his voice. "Now I know who you are," she replied simply. "Aunt Carol's husband. The man Mom said would one day understand the truth." The phone rang again. This time, it was his driver. "Sir, there are armed men in the lobby. The police have been called, but..." The millionaire didn't wait for him to finish. He hung up and turned to the girl. "We have to get out of here. Now." Without hesitation, he picked up the child in his arms. The guide dog stood up, alert. "Where are we going?" she asked, clinging to his neck. "To a safe place. And then we're going to find your mother." As he ran for the service stairs, the flash drive secure in his pocket, he felt that he had made his decision. There would be no deals, no going back to the past. Just a path ahead, a path of redemption he never thought possible. "I'm scared," whispered the girl against his shoulder. "Me too," he admitted. "But we're in this together now." And for the first time in 7 years, that promise meant something real. The roadside motel was 3 hours from the city, anonymous, discreet, the kind of place that didn't ask too many questions, when a man arrived in the middle of the night with a sleeping child in his arms and a guide dog. The millionaire had left his luxury car in a public parking garage, opting for a taxi and then a rental car with documents from one of his smaller companies. Years managing high-stakes businesses had taught him to always have escape routes. The girl was asleep in the next room. The businessman sat on the bed in the small room, so different from his luxurious penthouse, and inserted the flash drive into the laptop. The content was devastating. Spreadsheets detailing schemes to replace expensive medications with diluted or counterfeit versions. Internal reports documenting acceptable deaths resulting from these practices. Emails between executives of his company discussing how to keep the operations hidden, including from him described as the useful millionaire who only looks at the profits. There was also a video file. In it, the girl's mother, the same woman in the photo, the friend of his deceased wife, explained everything in detail. The tense face of someone who knows they are in danger, but determined to expose the truth. "If you're seeing this, it means I managed to get the evidence to the right person," she said. "Or that something happened to me. Caroline always said that one day you would open your eyes, that behind the businessman there was someone who cared. I hope she was right." The millionaire watched the recording 3 times, each word piercing the armor he had built around his heart over the years. The mention of his wife, the faith she had in him, a faith he never deserved, was almost unbearable. By dawn, he had made his decision. It wouldn't be enough just to find the girl's mother and run. The entire system needed to be exposed, dismantled, even if it meant losing everything he had built. The girl woke up shortly after, her face marked by the pillow, her hands groping around until she found the guide dog sleeping at the foot of the bed. "Good morning," she said, sensing the millionaire's presence in the room. "Where are we?" "In a safe place," he replied, approaching and sitting on the edge of the bed. "I watched your mother's video." The girl nodded. "She made me promise I'd keep it safe until I found the right person." "And how did you know I was that person?" She smiled, that wise smile that seemed out of place on such a young face. "At first I didn't know, but after we talked on that bridge, something told me you weren't like the other rich men. There was pain in your voice, real pain." The millionaire swallowed hard. "Your mother mentions a property in the video, a farmhouse where they might be keeping her. I think I know where it is. Are we going to get her?" "Yes, but first we need a plan. The people involved are powerful. They have money, influence. We need to be smarter than them." While they had coffee, he explained his idea. They would use the flash drive as insurance, copies sent to several lawyers and journalists, programmed to be opened if anything happened to them. They would hire outside help, people who had no connection to his company. And most importantly, they would visit a specific person before any move. "Who?" asked the girl, curious. "The only person who can confirm all of this. The doctor who took care of my wife and daughter after the accident. He'll know if it really was sabotage, as the director implied." The visit to the retired doctor in a quiet suburb revealed the last piece of the puzzle. The accident hadn't been accidental, as he suspected. The old doctor, retired for years and free from any threat, confirmed there was evidence of tampering with the vehicle, ignored by the official investigation. "I tried to talk to you at the time," said the doctor, his face marked by the weight of the secret. "But you were so destroyed by grief that your assistants blocked all attempts. Why didn't you insist? Why didn't you go to the police?" The old man shrugged, his gaze distant. "I received threats. I had young grandchildren. And you were a powerful man, surrounded by even more powerful people. Who would believe me?" Back in the car, the millionaire remained silent for long minutes, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard that his knuckles were white. "You're very angry," observed the girl, who always seemed to feel what he didn't express. "I am," he admitted, "but not with the doctor. With myself, for being so blind, for allowing this to happen. My mom said that anger is only useful when we use it to do something good." He looked at the child, once again impressed with her wisdom. "Your mother seems like an amazing woman." "She is," replied the girl, emphasizing the present tense, refusing to consider any other possibility. That night, in another anonymous motel, the millionaire made a series of calls using burner phones to a private investigator who had helped with complex acquisitions, to a former prosecutor he knew from charity events, to a digital security expert who had provided services to his companies. An unlikely team was forming. A rescue operation was beginning to take shape. The girl, sitting on the motel bed, played distractedly with the guide dog's fur while listening to the preparations. "You're different," she commented when he finally finished the calls. "Different how?" "Your voice. It sounds alive." The millionaire sat down beside her, allowing himself a rare moment of vulnerability. "You know, on the morning we met, I really was going to jump. I know. What stopped me wasn't just you interrupting me. It was what you said about needing help finding your mother. In that moment, I realized there was still something I could do in this world. Something beyond accumulating money and power. The girl reached out, finding his hand with surprising precision. Aunt Carol always said you were a good man who had gotten lost. Tears he hadn't shed in years formed in the businessman's eyes. I haven't been a good man for a long time, but maybe it's not too late to change that. It's never too late, she replied, with the unwavering certainty of innocence. Mum always says that. That night, the millionaire slept truly for the first time in years, not the restless sleep induced by alcohol or pills, but the rest of someone who had finally found a purpose. The next day, at dawn, he put the girl and the guide dog in the car. The GPS was programmed for a rural property 2 hours away. "Ready?" he asked, looking at the child in the passenger seat. "I am," she replied, her face determined. "Let's go get my mom." The rural property was isolated on top of a hill, surrounded by a dense woods. From the outside, it looked like just a luxurious farmhouse, the kind of retreat executives used for weekends away from the city. To the untrained eye, nothing indicated its true purpose. The millionaire parked the rental car almost a mile away, hidden among trees. He carried the girl on his back part of the way, with the guide dog following silently beside them. As they approached the fence surrounding the property, they found the private investigator waiting, as arranged. "There are 4 men inside," he informed them in a low voice. 2 seem to be security guards. 1 is clearly a doctor. The other seems to be the supervisor. Cameras in every corner, state-of-the-art security system. And the woman? 2nd floor, east wing, room with barred windows. She's conscious but kept under constant medication. "I got these images an hour ago." The investigator showed photos on his phone. Even in the grainy image, it was unmistakable. The girl's mother, thinner and more gaunt, but alive. "Is she okay?" asked the girl, clinging to the millionaire's neck, unable to see the photo, but sensing the tension in the air. "She's alive and she's going to be okay," he replied, gently squeezing the child's arm. The plan was simple in theory, complex in execution. The former prosecutor had already activated contacts in the FBI who were just waiting for the signal to raid the place with a warrant. But they needed to ensure the woman would be safe when that happened. If the captors realized they were cornered, they might take drastic measures. "I'll go in first," decided the millionaire. "Alone. It's too risky," argued the investigator. "They don't expect to see me. They think I'm negotiating, considering the deal. Surprise is our advantage." After further discussion, they agreed on a modified version of the plan. The millionaire would enter as if he were coming to negotiate. The investigator and the security expert would enter from the back, discreetly disabling the alarm system. The police would await the signal hidden nearby. "What about me?" asked the girl when they explained what would happen. "You stay here safe," replied the millionaire. The child shook her head, stubborn. "No, I need to go with you. It's too dangerous. Mom will hear me. She'll know it's really me. They may have told her I'm dead, or worse, I need to be there." The argument was convincing. After tense deliberation, they decided the girl would stay in the car, protected until the situation was under control. Only then would they bring her inside. "Promise you'll stay in the car until we call you," insisted the millionaire. "I promise," she replied, serious. At 3:42 p.m., the plan went into action. The millionaire drove his rental car to the main gate, identified himself on the intercom. After a few tense moments, the gate opened. "Welcome," said the hospital director, waiting at the door of the house with a calculated smile. "I didn't expect to see you so soon, and I certainly didn't expect you to come alone." "I decided to speed up the process," replied the businessman, his neutral expression hiding the internal turmoil. "I want to see the woman first, confirm she's alive and well, then we'll discuss the terms." The director hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. Fair enough. This way. As he was led into the house, the millionaire observed every detail: camera positions, number of doors, location of the security guards. On the second floor, they walked down a hallway until they reached a reinforced door. The director used an access card and a numerical code to open it. Inside, in a room that looked more like a hospital cell, was she, sitting by the barred window, looking at the landscape outside. At the sound of the door, she turned slowly. The millionaire felt a shock of recognition. She was exactly like in the photos, but there was something more, a silent dignity that the images didn't capture. The same eyes as her daughter, determined even in the face of adversity. "We have a visitor," announced the director, his tone falsely cheerful. "Someone came to check if you're being well taken care of." The woman looked at the millionaire without showing surprise. "So you finally came," she said, her voice slightly hoarse. "Caroline always said that one day you would understand." The director seemed confused by the familiarity. "You know each other?" "Not personally," replied the millionaire, holding the woman's gaze. "But we have an important connection. Your daughter is safe, by the way. She's nearby." The woman's eyes widened, shining with contained tears. "My daughter, she's okay?" "They told me." "They lied," he interrupted. "She's perfectly fine, and she never lost hope of finding you." The director took a step forward, his smile now replaced by a tense expression. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. We came here to discuss terms, not to—" He was interrupted by the sound of a siren in the distance, followed by the property's alarm going off. The plans had changed. "What did you do?" hissed the director, his face contorted with anger. "What I should have done a long time ago," replied the millionaire. He turned to the woman. "Can we go now?" She nodded, getting up with some difficulty. The director retreated to the door, where one of the security guards appeared, gun in hand. "No one's going anywhere," declared the director, the veneer of civility completely gone. "You're playing a dangerous game, you know. Everything you've built, everything you own, can disappear with a word from me." The millionaire took a step forward, positioning himself between the woman and the armed security guard. "You still don't get it, do you? I don't care about that anymore. Empire, fortune, reputation, none of that means anything compared to what you took from me, what you keep taking from innocent people." Outside, the sound of sirens was approaching. Voices echoed through the hallway, orders being shouted. The security guard looked nervously at the director, who was sweating profusely. "Think carefully," tried the director one last time. "We can still fix this. No one needs to know how involved you were. We can blame mid-level executives, create scapegoats." "I was involved," admitted the millionaire, his voice firm, "by omission, by greed, by willful blindness. And I'm going to answer for it, like all of you." At that moment, there was a crash downstairs. The security guard, distracted, lowered his gun slightly. It was enough. In a move that surprised everyone, including himself, the businessman lunged forward, pushing the man's arm up. The gun fired into the ceiling, causing a shower of dust and plaster. The director tried to escape, but the woman, with unexpected strength for someone who had been in captivity, blocked his path. The security guard and the millionaire wrestled for control of the gun when FBI agents stormed into the room, guns drawn, shouting orders. In seconds, the situation was under control. The director and the security guard surrendered, handcuffed, being informed of their rights. The millionaire helped the woman sit on the bed, now trembling with the adrenaline of the moment. "My daughter," she whispered, holding the businessman's arm with surprising strength. "I need to see my daughter." "She's coming," he assured her, as a medic from the police team entered to examine her. Downstairs at the same time, the investigator found the girl not in the car where she was supposed to be, but hidden behind bushes near the entrance of the house, the guide dog by her side as always. "You promised to stay in the car," he scolded her gently. "I heard gunshots," she replied, her face pale but determined. "I needed to be closer." "Is Mom okay?" "She is," he assured her. "Let's go, she's waiting for you." When the girl entered the house, guided by the investigator and the faithful dog, the millionaire waited at the foot of the stairs. Without words, he picked her up in his arms and climbed the steps slowly, each step laden with meaning. At the door of the room, he paused. "Your mother is a little weak," he explained. "They kept her medicated, so she may seem different than you remember." The girl nodded, her body tense with anticipation. "It doesn't matter. I'd recognize my mom anywhere." When they entered, the woman was already standing, supported by the medic. Upon seeing her daughter, she let out a muffled cry, a sound that contained all the pain, all the hope, all the love in the world. "My little one," she called, extending her trembling arms. "My brave one." The millionaire put the girl on the floor. Without hesitation, guided only by the sound of her mother's voice, the child ran, her arms outstretched. The encounter was like a collision of bodies, souls, and time. Months of separation dissolving into a desperate embrace. "I knew it," sobbed the girl. "I knew you'd come back. I'd never leave you," replied the mother, repeatedly kissing her daughter's face, both of their tears mingling. "Never." The millionaire watched the scene, feeling simultaneously essential and intrusive. This was a moment that belonged only to the two of them, a moment that was almost stolen from them forever. While police officers searched the property, collecting evidence and arresting the other people involved, mother and daughter remained embraced, whispering words only for them, reconnecting the bond that no separation could break. Later, as the woman was being examined in an ambulance and the girl refused to leave her side, an FBI agent approached the millionaire. "We need your full statement," he said. "The scheme seems to be bigger than we imagined. It involves other hospital networks, pharmaceutical companies, even government officials." "You'll have everything," assured the businessman. "Every detail, every name, every transaction. It doesn't matter who gets hit. This will destroy your company," warned the officer. "Your reputation." The millionaire watched the woman and the child in the ambulance. For a moment he seemed to see his deceased wife beside them, not as a ghost, but as a living memory of everything that really mattered. Some things need to be destroyed so that something better can be born, he replied simply. 6 months had passed since the day of the rescue. The case had exploded in the national media. "Hospital empire built on fraud and deaths," read the headlines. The scandal involved dozens of executives, politicians, and government officials. The millionaire kept his promise. He handed over every document, every email, every piece of evidence he possessed. He testified in preliminary hearings, exposing not only others, but himself. His negligence, his obsession with results, his willful blindness to what was happening in his companies. His fortune dwindled drastically. Stocks plummeted, investors fled, properties were sold to pay damages. The empire that had taken decades to build crumbled in months. But strangely, he had never felt so light. On that sunny spring morning, he parked his car, now a common model, no longer an imported rarity, in front of a small cafe on the outskirts of town. Outside, a simple table, ordinary people enjoying the Saturday morning. At one of the tables, a woman and a girl waited for him, along with the faithful guide dog who rested at their feet. The woman had regained the weight she had lost during captivity. The girl smiled more than ever. "Sorry I'm late," he said, sitting down. "We figured traffic would be rough," replied the mother, pushing a cup of coffee towards him. "The hearing's not until 2, right?" "Yeah." He took a sip of the coffee, feeling the bitter but comforting taste. "My lawyer thinks today will be the last day of my testimony in the preliminary phase." The daughter, playing with a piece of cake, asked, "Are they still being mean to you in the newspapers?" The businessman exchanged a look with the mother. Even with her vision completely absent, the girl absorbed everything around her: conversations, tones of voice, unspoken tensions. "Some are," he replied honestly. "Others are starting to understand that I'm trying to fix what I helped break." The woman reached out over the table, briefly touching his hand, a gesture that still surprised him by the naturalness with which it had developed between them. "Caroline would be proud," she said, "to see the man you're becoming." The mention of his deceased wife no longer brought only pain. There was also gratitude for having known that love, even if for a limited time, for having received a second chance to honor her memory. "The foundation starts operating next month," he commented, changing the subject slightly. "We already have 30 cases of children waiting for adequate medical assistance." The Caroline Foundation, created with what remained of his fortune, was dedicated to providing free and quality medical treatment for children in vulnerable situations. It was little compared to the harm his companies had caused, but it was a start. "I want to work there when I grow up," announced the girl, with the determination that always impressed him. "I'm going to be a doctor like Aunt Carol." "I'm sure you'll be a brilliant doctor," he smiled. After finishing their coffee, they walked together through the adjacent park. The girl held her mother's hand on one side and his on the other, occasionally letting go to run ahead with the guide dog, always attentive to every obstacle. "Sometimes I still have difficulty believing it," commented the woman, watching her daughter. "That we're here, that we survived, that you found us." "She's the one who found me," the millionaire corrected, "on that bridge, about to give up on everything." They stopped for a moment, looking at the city skyline. In the distance, you could see the silhouette of the bridge, the same one where, a little over 6 months ago, two seemingly disconnected destinies had intertwined irreversibly. "You know what's strangest?" he continued. "For years, I built walls around myself. Mansions, companies, bank accounts, all to avoid feeling, to avoid connecting. And all it took was a blind child to make me see what was right in front of me the whole time. And what was that? That we're all connected, that nothing we do or fail to do is without consequence, that there's no real success built on the pain of others." The woman smiled, a smile that resembled her daughter's, and also Caroline's, he realized. "I always knew there was a good man behind that facade of a ruthless businessman," she said. "Caroline knew it too. That's why she never gave up on you, even when you seemed to have given up on yourself." Further ahead, the girl was calling, eager to show something she had found, a fragrant flower she had perceived through her sharpened sense of smell. "We have to go," he said, checking his watch. "The hearing?" "It's going to be all right," assured the woman, gently squeezing his arm. "We're with you." Those simple words contained a universe of meaning. We're with you. Not just for the hearing that day, but for what was to come, for the rebuilding, for the redemption, for the new life they were in some unexpected way building together. As they walked back to the car, the millionaire, who no longer defined himself by his fortune but by his newfound purpose, reflected on the extraordinary journey of the last few months. From a man on the verge of suicide to someone who had finally found reasons to live fully. The blind girl hadn't only saved his life that morning on the bridge, she had guided him, in her darkness, to a light he never would have found alone. And that, he realized, was the real miracle. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day.